Hello, welcome back to Over 50 and Flourishing. Hope your new year is getting off to a good start. We are settling into January and we are rolling out strong this year. Today's podcast episode is dealing with relationships, but specific issues in relationships. We're talking about rebuilding trust in self and in others. We're talking about dating after divorce and avoiding narcs, 8 strategies for success. Who better than to discuss all of these topics than our dear friend to Over 50 and Flourishing, Laurie Gerber. She is a relationship coach and expert. She's been on this platform multiple times, and she is about to unravel and unveil 8 strategies that will promise success in your life and in your relationships in the years to come. Big welcome to Laurie Gerber. Sometimes we just need someone to talk to, and that's where Rula comes in. You know, finding a therapist that you trust shouldn't be so complicated or cost a bloody fortune. And that's why today's sponsor, Rula, was formed. Rula will connect you with high-quality, vetted, licensed mental health professionals, up to 10,000 therapists that are suited for you. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey toward improved mental health and overall well-being. Head on over to rula.com/over50 and get started today. After you sign up, they're going to ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Go to rula.com/over50 and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from somebody who cares. You guys, laundry has gone next level with laundry sauce. Think about it. We care about our fragrance, right? We want to smell good. Why not apply that same thinking to our laundry? Laundry sauce comes in incredible pods with perfume quality scents like Australian sandalwood and Egyptian rose, crafted with natural, responsibly sourced ingredients. Laundry sauce isn't just the world's best smelling laundry detergent. It is a whole new vibes. Right now, for a limited time, our listeners get 20% off your entire order when you use code OVER50 at laundrysauce.com. That's 20% off your order at laundrysauce.com with promo code OVER50. After your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Smell good, look good, feel good with laundry sauce. Here's an interesting factoid. Lots of probiotics break down during digestion before they ever reach the colon. That can be kind of irritating, not only because you may not be getting all the microbiotics safely down to your biome, but also literally the early breakup of the capsule can irritate your digestive system. Well, that's why Ritual's Symbiotic Plus is designed with a delayed release capsule to help reach the colon. That's an ideal place for biotics to grow and thrive. Hey, get your gut going. Support a balanced gut microbiome with Ritual's Symbiotic Plus. Get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/over50. That's ritual.com/over50 for 25% off your first month. Welcome. Hope your new year is getting off to a good start. I wanted to make sure it got off to a great start, which is why I'm bringing Laurie Gerber back onto the podcast. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Great to be back. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. You know, a lot of, you know what New Year signifies for a lot of people. There's a lot of new going on, whether it's health, whether it's relationships. You know, a lot of things are getting examined this time of year. So I thought it would be a really, really smart idea to have you back and to further our conversations, because we've had multiple already on relationships, divorce,
Dating.
many elements.
Finding love, keeping love.
Exactly. And I love having you back because you are so well versed on all different types of relationships, whether it is romantic relationships, whether it's parent-child, whatever it may be. You help us get our heads in the right space. So today we're going to be talking about rebuilding trust in self and others, dating after divorce, and my personal favorite, avoiding narcissists or narcs, as you like to put.
Yeah.
Laurie, you've got 8 strategies for success. And I think that you're going to help a lot of people because we're covering a broad range of subjects. So let's start off with the first one. And you kind of punted me off with this one. And this is something that a lot of people deal with and have to reckon with. And that is, I lied in my marriage, or they lied to me. Where do I go from here? How do I trust again?
Right. And that's the big issue with rebuilding trust is if I got fooled before, how am I going to not get fooled again?
Mm-hmm.
And the one that most people don't admit, but is also happening is I lied or I lie. How can I trust? If I don't even trust myself to tell the truth, how can I trust somebody else to tell the truth? That's one nobody really talks about, but that is going on also. And I will say, when I work with people who have been divorced or out of a relationship, it doesn't have to be a divorce or a breakup of some kind, what I can guarantee is everybody lied, because human beings lie. Now, usually when I say lie, you think, well, I said I was out with a friend, but I was really cheating on you, like an outright lie like that people think of. And then they go, well, I didn't do that. I would never do that. Right?
Right.
But we don't think about things like spending money and hiding it, being upset and not speaking up about it, hating their friends and not saying anything, wanting something in bed and not saying something, faking orgasms, hiding health concerns, finagling things with the kids, but not telling the partner, so I start to try to get the client to understand that everybody lied. Now, that doesn't mean that your lies were as bad as his lies, or that there's not a hierarchy of, we call it, Disney dark to dark. There's like Disney dark.
Although some would argue Disney dark is dark.
Yeah, I mean, it's still dark, but again, I would not put, a surprise party on the same level as cheating,
Sure. So it's interesting. And I want to stop you right here, because I think I'm discerning something really important. The fact that you didn't reveal something, or the fact that you repressed something, is actually being considered a lie.
In my methodology, I give a very broad, and this is based on the method I was trained in. It's called the Handel method. It was piloted at MIT and Stanford when it was developed 20 years ago. And you can watch my TEDx talk. It's all about the 7 forms of lying. Human beings lie. Pigeons even lie. There was a study done that if the pigeon would get a cookie for a certain behavior, the pigeon would do that behavior even if it wasn't supposed to get the cookie, right? We know babies fake cry. We know that lying is about as natural as being afraid of public speaking, right? Like it is very natural to lie.
Apparently we know we'll do anything for a cookie on top of it.
We love cookies. That's another thing that seems natural. We love cookies.
Right.
So Happy New Year. So it is very hard for humans to accept that we lie. And sometimes when you can see it defined in a bunch of different ways, you can start to go, okay, maybe I exaggerate. Maybe I omit. Maybe I misrepresent. Maybe I avoid confrontation, right? A lot of women who break up with narcissists or unkind people don't think they lied, because the abusive person was so much worse, right? Like, was so much worse. But I go, but you were lying to yourself. You were. That is still lying.
Yes, or even lying in order to prevent the outburst from the other person, right? Or hiding something.
And everybody thinks they're lying is for a good reason. Everybody does. But the problem is we can't compare what it would have been like if we told the truth.
Right.
We don't know, right? We don't actually know what we saved ourselves from, or what harm we put ourselves in by the withholding or the lying. So I don't treat lying as an ethical or moral thing. I really don't. I treat it as an impediment to your dreams. I treat it as a way to not know yourself, right? So if you don't know yourself, if you don't accept yourself, if you don't love yourself, then you have to lie. You have to lie to make other people happy. You have to lie to fit in. You have to lie to be accepted. That's not a way to live, right? That is not actually your dream. Your dream is to be yourself and to be happy being yourself and to have other people love you for who you are.
How do you walk people through then the ownership of that, of telling the truth?
First, we just have to take it. First, you just have to admit, is it possible I lie? Right? Like that's the first very big deal.
Right.
And again, watch my TEDx talk. It's only 18 minutes of me telling all of mine. Okay. If you want to feel better. Okay. So
you lead by example.
I really try. I really can't sit here and go, you all lie, but I don't. Okay. Sure. Everyone lies. And it's just finding your brand. So again, and most people, by the way, most people who lie, who are martyrs, who are kind of like, bad stuff happens to them, their form of lying is withholding, is not telling the truth to themselves and others about what's going on. Like if your friends all knew how the man treated you, you'd have had to break up a long time ago, right? So most people are lying like that, and they don't think that's lying, right? They think that's being strong or being a good person.
Yes.
They think lying is, I said I was going on a business trip, but instead I slept with my secretary. That's lying, right? Like they're both lying, and they work well together, right? Especially if you want to keep a family together, or you want to keep looking good to the neighbors, or you don't think you can deal financially with a breakup. Then we really, really see a good reason to lie. And then we don't call it lying. We call it being a good person, trying hard, working on the marriage, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So first, admit it. Second, inventory past and current lies. Third, you might want to talk to someone about what the benefits, because most people, I'm still arguing to this day, Dominique, with most of my clients that it is for the best to tell the truth. I'm argue it every single day.
I will stand.
Not popular.
Yes.
Not popular.
Yep.
But every time I get someone to do it, they do call me back and go, thank you. They do go, oh, my heart thawed, or, oh, I have this relationship now, or, oh, I like myself better. I don't know why, so it does work, but it is a sales pitch every single time. So somebody needs to convince you that it's safe to tell the truth, right? I wouldn't go blow up your marriage before you have a lawyer or a plan. I'm not saying go, tell everybody the truth right now. So you need to have someone working with you to help you if it's a big one, to help you figure out how to talk about it. And then you design a conversation where you confess, right? And then you find out what they're lying about, because as I was going to say at the very beginning, when people come to me, I can always tell you both people were lying. It's never one person lies and the other one has none. It's always two people were lying in an interestingly complementary way. Yeah. That makes sense when you go back and look. So
how do you break that ice with somebody? I mean, let's say that you are trying to rebuild something, or it's clear that there has been a breach of trust on both sides. How do you even approach that conversation if you are trying to rebuild and not basically sink the ship?
Right. Well, that's why I tell people just watch my TEDx talk in front of the person. Right? Like nudge, nudge. You can ease into like, oh my God, I saw this interesting TEDx talk. What do you think? Do you think people lie? Do we think we lie? Do we have any lies? You don't have to, bang the hammer over the person's head. You can test the waters, right? Because there are some people, I will say this, because I've done a lot of truth telling in my life, where you go, I want to have an honest relationship. I want to tell you, but I haven't been telling you. Do you want to know? Because you have to get consent. You can't just ambush someone. That's mean. And if they say no, you don't tell them, right? So that's the other thing I try to reassure people. You're not ambushing anybody. You're not forcing anybody to hear the truth. If they don't want to hear it, if they're not ready, if they're too tired, if they're whatever, they don't have to hear it.
Interesting. Although I would find it to be so rare to tee it up that way.
Really
and then
hard. It's really hard to say no, but you could. And honestly, when people come to me with gossip, I tell them I don't want to hear. Mm-hmm. So it is possible to kind of go, no, thank you on that. Right.
Those are boundaries that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, but to back up, in rebuilding trust in yourself and another means you have to know that you lied. You have to do your own inventory so that you can tell an honest story. The honest story, it may be he was more of a jerk than you, and maybe you were more of a jerk than him. We have all kinds. And maybe you were pretty equal jerks. Right? Amongst you listening, you could be in any one of those three categories. But the story has to add up. The story needs to make sense. And ultimately, again, I just spoke to a new client. We'll call her Amy just yesterday. New client, divorced a few years, wants to get back into dating, but doesn't trust anyone. Like exactly this topic, right? Doesn't trust anyone, doesn't know why, still feels unresolved about the divorce years ago, but still feels unresolved. And it's like a thorn in her side. You can see she's like limping from the divorce. And so I said, if I asked you to tell the story of the divorce as a 100% author, like you had everything to do with it, could you do it? And she said, I don't know. I've never thought of it that way. Right? Like, good question. So I said, why don't you do this? Just to get it off your chest, write me your whole laundry list on him. Like, tell me everything he did wrong. Give me every crime, every bad habit, every hurt, every slight, everything that still haunts you, all of it, right? His family, everything. Give me the laundry list. And write it as if you're talking to him, right? Because practice. Imagine you could tell him the truth if you haven't already. And then pretend he's doing the reverse for you. What's his list on you? Cool. Anything in there you can own, anything you can admit to, write it like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I never listened to you wanting to have more sex. I'm sorry I didn't take you seriously when you wanted to move your daughter in. I'm sorry I didn't try harder to be nice to your mother. I'm sorry I ultimately gave up. I'm sorry I stopped trying to look cute for you. Whatever you can own, do that next. And then we're starting to get somewhere where you could walk around resolved. Like, you could walk around like, okay, I know what I did wrong. I know what I need to do differently next time. I know what I can't put up with anymore. I know what I stepped over. I know what I'm not okay with anymore. Now I have boundaries. Now I have rules for dating. I can now trust myself. I'm not going to do that again because that was really painful. That breakup, that divorce was really painful.
It sounds like that's the homework that we have to do in order to have the freedom we need to move forward authentically and to move into a relationship that has truth and trust, not only in ourselves, but other people as well, right?
Right. And you have to kind of know how you lie. You have to know how you lie to yourself. You have to know how you lie to others. You have to know how they lie to you. Like, all of that is very important.
It's critical
information for mature relationships.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we just chipped away at a biggie there, and that is lying. And Laurie has told us we all lie. So now she's given us the strategies on how to deal with that so that we can move forward in truth and trust. And that's the intent of this podcast. It is rebuilding trust in yourself and others so that you can date, especially if you are now dating after divorce, which a lot of women are doing in midlife. And we're also going to get to the ugly part, because we've all been there, encountering narcissists. And so we're going to take a quick commercial break. We're back with Laurie Gerber right after this. Sometimes we just need someone to talk to, and that's where Rula comes in. Finding a therapist that you trust shouldn't be so complicated or cost a bloody fortune. And that's why today's sponsor, Rula, was formed. Rula will connect you with high-quality, vetted, licensed mental health professionals, up to 10,000 therapists that are suited for you. And the best part is this: they take most major insurance plans. That means instead of paying hundreds out of pocket, you could pay as little as $15 per session to help you with whatever you're struggling with at the moment. Thousands have already trusted Rula to support them on their journey toward improved mental health and overall well-being. Head on over to rula.com/over50 and get started today. After you sign up, they're going to ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Go to rula.com/over50 and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from somebody who cares. You guys, laundry has gone next level with laundry sauce. Think about it. We care about our fragrance, right? We want to smell good. Why not apply that same thinking to our laundry? Laundry sauce comes in incredible pods with perfume quality scents like Australian sandalwood and Egyptian rose. I kid you not, the smells are incredible. Your clothing will never ever smell the same, for the better. Crafted with natural, responsibly sourced ingredients, laundry sauce isn't just the world's best smelling laundry detergent. It is a whole new vibes. It will literally turn folding clothes into kind of a self-care moment. I'm serious. Right now, for a limited time, our listeners get 20% off your entire order when you use code OVER50 at laundrysauce.com. That's 20% off your order at laundrysauce.com with promo code OVER50. After your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. Smell good, look good, feel good with laundry sauce. Welcome back. Good to have Laurie Gerber with us on the show today. She is helping us in our relationships. And if that is an area of struggle for you in your life right now, or maybe an area that you're wanting to work on, or an area that's needing some change, we figured it would make sense to bring the expert in to help guide you, maybe to prompt some thoughts and actions in your life that are tangible and healthy to get you to think about things maybe a little differently than you have and enable you to move forward in a very healthy way. So Laurie Gerber, our relationship expert, is back with us. Laurie, we tackled lying prior to the commercial break. It's a biggie, but it was the most important strategy for success, I think, to be able to check off before we move on to the next one. And that is, for those who are deciding that the relationship cannot be salvaged and they have to move through with a divorce, how to explain it to the world, right, which means your inner circle, your family, your children, your parents, and then even talk about it to a future suitor.
Right, right. I can't tell you how many women delay the breakup because they are so daunted by the fact that they're going to have to explain it and tell people. And I also can't tell you how relieving it is sometimes to remember that the truth is actually probably the simplest strategy. Back to the truth.
Right.
In other words, unfortunately, when we're very upset and in a reaction, we don't always tell the truth, right? We tell one side of the truth or one facet of the truth. We don't tell the whole picture. Mm-hmm. So my answer to how do you explain it is, very soberly, very carefully, very mindfully. And what you're ultimately going for, because you don't want to damage your children. You don't want your friends to have to choose. You don't want your families even to have to choose. Mm-hmm. You don't want your future suitors to see red flags written all over you. So you want to be able to tell a balanced story. And you probably know right now, if you're thinking about what would be your elevator explanation for your divorce, if it's a balanced story or not, if it's a well thought out story or not, right? If it's ready for public consumption. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if it's ready for public consumption, here are some of the things that it will contain. It will contain your lessons, what you learned. That will be the main thing it contains and the main takeaway a person will have after hearing it, including your children. Mm. Right? Mommy just, tolerated this for a really long time because it was worthwhile, but then mommy couldn't tolerate it anymore. And she decided to, choose something that felt really more healthy. That was a lesson I learned when I turned 42 or 49 or 69 or however old you are. That's a learning. That's not daddy's a jerk or, and even when they are a jerk, right? And I would put narcissists in the category of jerk. Mm-hmm. I would put people who are abusive in the category of a jerk. So even if you withstood abuse, it is beneficial to you to be able to tell that story in a balanced way, in a way that takes ownership. I was okay with that at the time. Then I became no longer okay with that. Mm-hmm. I put a boundary. I made a decision. I wanted something different for myself. That's not blaming anybody. That's taking full responsibility for the choice. Mm-hmm. And it kind of leaves the other person speechless. Right? There's nothing to argue with. There's nothing to really question.
It's done. You're right. You drew the line in the sand.
And it's great if you can go, there were things that used to be compatible that weren't anymore. This changed, that changed, those two things changed. Or, daddy cheated. I couldn't forgive it. I cheated. He couldn't forgive it. We both cheated. We clearly weren't really happy in meeting each other's needs. Mm-hmm. Those things are things that a kid, maybe not a young child, but, teenagers and up can understand and then not blame themselves, which is what kids always want to do with their parents.
Right. I was going to ask you, at what age do you have those conversations with children? Because you're right. I mean, some conversations, like you just mentioned, a child has to be of a certain maturity to be able to understand it and not harbor resentment toward the parents. So how do you encourage parents to talk to their children, and when and how much?
That is a whole other topic, a whole very long topic.
I know.
Well, the answer is always, please try to get your story straight before you talk to the children. Yeah. And I know sometimes that's not possible if you're dealing with someone who's mentally ill, someone who's in a active addiction, or a narcissist. It's really actually not possible to get your story straight. So I really want to carve that out as an exception, and a really important exception, in which case you need to be the anchor for your kids, period. Right? You need to be the emotional anchor. You need to be the stable one. You need to make it okay for them. You need to protect them, really, from the other parent. very different situation than just two people who grew apart or couldn't reconcile their differences or couldn't forgive cheating or something like that. In those cases, again, I think even a very young child can understand we're not in love anymore. We don't do the things for each other anymore that we need. So we're still going to be best friends and we're still going to be parents to you, but we're not going to be partners anymore. I think even a very young child can understand that. But here's like the big parentheses. Lineage issues repeat. I can't explain the science exactly, except for I do know that epigenetics is real, but lineage issues repeat. And so your kids are, by not letting your kids know what's really going on, by not letting your kids know your weaknesses, your partner's weaknesses, the ways in which everyone lies, the things that people hide, does not protect your kids from it happening to them, which is what we think. But I'm sorry to report it's not true. So I could save you, and your children some. It is always better to actually talk about it and take it out from under the rug.
Yes, absolutely. Because if you don't, they're going to assume, or then there's, gossip and innuendo and honestly, what's worse, right?
Exactly. And then even worse is when they start to repeat your same bad habits and think they came up with it themselves.
Yes.
Right. And blame themselves and hate themselves rather than going, no, this is actually an issue in our lineage that we are here to evolve. So let me help you evolve it by telling you what I learned. And so maybe you can, on my shoulders, do better.
Yeah.
And so, your kid, what they can hear, but that's the direction it's headed.
And as I hear you talk about that, it really bolsters the importance of the first thing that we talked about, and that is the lying, and to be able to be truthful and honest, because only until then can you help break those generational curses or lineage issues by being truthful about things to the people in your life who matter. So that's a biggie. That's a biggie. What happens, Laurie, in a case where a spouse plays victim, right? Because they want to garner the love and support from the family. They don't want the truth to be known to the family about their culpability in the ending of a relationship. And so they play the victim and they make the other person look like the bad guy or the bad girl. Yeah.
I mean, it's almost the most popular game in town. It's really, really popular. If you're experiencing that, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in divorces, you find out where people stand and you find out the strength of your relationships, because anybody who is in a healthy relationship with you, where they get from you what they need and you get from them what you need, a healthy, balanced, loving relationship, will listen to your experience and give your experience credence. And anyone who is not in a healthy, loving, balanced relationship with you, in other words, anyone who just wants to take from you, is not interested in that exchange, is not interested in giving you love, will not give credence to your, everything will become clear, right? They will not give credence to your opinion. They will just believe whatever the one person says. Now, kids are in this unique position of they want to actually not kill either of their parents. They want to actually believe both of their parents. So they are in a really big quandary if the two stories don't line up. That is really hard for them. Friends can pick sides, can choose, can even attempt to believe both. But kids are in a real pickle. So if you are the healthier parent, it is your job to try to help those stories make sense while not giving up the truth in your story. And a helpful lens on that could also be, it's not the truth, it's my experience, right? My experience was that dad was not consistent with the bills. My experience was that dad, when he drank, wasn't kind to us. My experience, right? This is not the truth. This was my experience. You cannot argue with somebody's experience or how it felt.
That's a great way to phrase that.
Yeah. So yes, daddy feels upset because he lost the family, or daddy feels upset because he doesn't get to see you now every day. Totally understand why daddy's upset. And this was the choice I made because of what my experience was and what I thought was best for you. And then ultimately everyone grows up, collects their own data, has their own life experiences, and decides what to believe. And to this day, I'm finding out new things about my parents, right? Just, the truth continues to unfold.
Right.
Forever, literally forever, even beyond the grave.
And it's fascinating. As long as people are willing to, again, be truthful and to explore and to ask questions, right? I mean, these conversations can always further down the line. And I think that we just become better as humans if we are honest and we share relationally what it is that we know and we've learned along the way. So thank you just for honestly bringing the importance of honesty to the equation throughout life, right? And just having the hard conversations internally and externally. Boy, that's just the most important thing.
My joke with the woman who trained me in this method is like, where's the section on lying in the bookstore? You know, like where is it? Why is no one talking about it?
Because nobody wants to address it.
Nobody wants to talk about it. And the only reason I can talk about it is because you can listen to my lies for 18 minutes on YouTube, right?
Exactly. It's even the truth set you free.
Yeah, it's a unique position to be in, to be okay talking about the fact that I lie and that human beings lie. But it's unbelievably freeing, right? It really puts you in the right work.
Yes.
Because what you lie about shows you what you're not resolved about and what you're not okay with.
Sure. And if you can bring, and I would say too, I mean, you did it in a TED Talk capacity, which means, I mean, you're talking to people you don't know and they don't know you. So there's no real.
Oh, but all my family members watched it, Dominique.
Oh, okay. All right. So
it didn't go to everyone I know.
You're right. But I mean, do you know what I'm saying? But to have these conversations,
it is harder.
It is. I mean, and I'm proud of you. And not to negate in any way the impact of what it is that you did, because it's huge. But I'm just thinking, you know, for the person who's listening to this and is thinking, oh my gosh, you know, I've got to get real with myself. I have to own my lies. And then to be able to move forward in, let's say, a new relationship. And I want to talk about, because the next subject is that there is good news in dating after divorce. Yes. In fact, you've got some best news in all of that. But I mean, and I want to further this conversation, because you're going to be sitting there and you're going to be talking with somebody now about your lies and, you know, your path and all of that. So let's talk about, you know, owning your liabilities, shall we say?
Yeah. And it really is. The strategy, if you want to think of it as a strategy for building trust, is to focus on the benefits, focus on what you have learned, focus on what the divorce has afforded you, not what it has taken from you. And that's a tricky switch, because most people really do relate like they're victims. And so you have two people on a date going, well, my spouse was my spouse was even worse. And then it becomes misery poker in the date. And then you wonder why that's not that sexy, right? Like, it's just not hot. It's way hotter to be like, this is what I learned.
Well, I won the woe is me game.
I know, it's just not as fun as you think. It is fun in the moment, but anyway. So the good news about a divorce, the good news about hitting rock bottom and then doing the hard work to get out of a marriage, which is so not fun, you all know, is that you really do learn what doesn't work about you. And even there's stuff that doesn't work about you and you know it doesn't, right? Like you snore, or, you know, you have, what's it called? The restless leg, right?
Restless leg syndrome.
Whatever. You have things that you know don't work about you. And then there's things you didn't know. You didn't know. You know, like, I really didn't know I was selfish going into my marriage. I didn't know. Like, once he pointed it out, I was like, that does sound familiar, but I didn't really know. So when something really does break down, you realize what you can't tolerate. You realize what's intolerable about you. You realize your pitfalls in communication. You realize what you're willing to do in bed or not do in bed. You know, you realize a lot of stuff that you now really can go in eyes wide open to. So I just think dating after you're 50 and above is just the best, because everyone really knows now. Yeah. We're not guessing. We're not playing games. We don't have to. It's just so refreshing.
There is a lot of clarity, and you definitely find your voice, because I think you've suppressed it. And that kind of goes back to identifying that suppressing your voice is a lie in and of itself, right? And many women have played that game for 10, 20, 30 years, depending on how long they've been married. And they're like, I'm exhausted. This suppression and this lack of honesty on my part is exhausting. But if it's been done for a long period of time, it can become habitual. It can become a pattern. How do you catch yourself? Let's say you're embarking in something new and it's already operating by a whole different model, but then you find yourself starting to withhold again because it feels so good and you don't want to screw it up or whatever. How do you prevent these old patterns from setting in?
I really do this every single day in my group coaching. A woman is like, I want to say this, but I can't. Like, I literally had someone say the other day, he's still on Bumble. Like, we've met each other's families. We spend every weekend together.
Right.
It's been 3 months. We say, I love you. Why is he still on Bumble? And I'm sitting here going, you need to ask him. And she's just like, I can't. What? And it took me again, like I have to beg. I have to beg and plead, please. And we have 8 steps of a difficult conversation and how we bring it up, and is now a good time to talk. And I'm sure this is nothing, but I just feel like I need to say it. And it could be my paranoia, but I notice you're still on Bumble, right? And so I'm forever pleading with people to simply practice at the very beginning, right? Mm-hmm. In the very first 3 dates, I want you to know their liabilities, because if they're attracted to you and they're enchanted by you and they want to be with you and they're looking for something long-term, they should also want to know what the deal breakers are going to be. They should want to know your deal breakers, and they should want you to know their deal breakers. And so you have to ask. I've really struggled with finances in the past in relationship, because I've been betrayed and money's been taken from me. And I felt so, it's hard for me not to think I should just never share again. Mm-hmm. What's happened to you with your finances in relationship? How's that been for you? Right? Like, that is not saying, how much do you make? Do you have any debt? Women want to ask those questions, right? Right. But it's just being honest about what's in your goodie bag and what you're dealing with. So I try to get people to do it proactively in the first few days, and not just once you're upset.
Yeah. And it sounds like there's a lot of fear to overcome. And we're going to get into your 4th key to success in relationships post-divorce in just a bit after we take a commercial break. But if anything, Laurie, we just have to encourage women to overcome fear, because it sounds like there is so much fear entering the dating space in midlife, because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm now in a space where I didn't expect myself to be, and I feel like time is running out, and maybe I'm afraid to ask these questions because this may be my last shot type thing. And so we've got to sort of take the limitations off of men, off of what God has in store for you, and not be so fearful in being truthful. But your 4th one is fixing the picker, because we want to make sure women have a fixed picker. So
picker's broken, not going to go well.
Not going to go well. We're going to tackle that right after this quick break. This show is sponsored by Liquid IV. Look, it's easy to get dehydrated, too much caffeine or alcohol, or even most of us are kind of ramping up our exercise routine and we need hydration. Well, introduce Liquid IV, powered by Live Hydroscience. Liquid IV will just help you break the mold from the ordinary water. All you have to do is take one of their packs, tear it open, add it to your water, and pow! We're talking about flavors like acai berry, lemon lime, pina colada, even sugar-free flavors like raspberry lemonade, white peach, rainbow sherbet. I think there's something in there for you. It's powered by Live Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that just turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. In fact, 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. And it's non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. So embrace your ritual with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code OVER50 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code over50 at liquidiv.com. Here's an interesting factoid. Lots of probiotics break down during digestion before they ever reach the colon. That can be kind of irritating, not only because you may not be getting all the microbiotics safely down to your biome, but also literally the early breakup of the capsule can irritate your digestive system. Well, that's why Ritual's Symbiotic Plus is designed with a delayed release capsule to help reach the colon. That's an ideal place for biotics to grow and thrive. I've been using Ritual's Symbiotic Plus for months now. It has a wonderful minty essence, easy to take, tastes great, just 1 capsule, and I've been noticing that I feel a lot less bloated and my digestive system is working better than ever. Hey, get your gut going. Support a balanced gut microbiome with Ritual Symbiotic Plus. Get 25% off your first month at ritual.com/over50. That's ritual.com/over50 for 25% off your first month. Welcome back. We are in the thralls of dating advice with Laurie Gerber, our relationship expert. Boy, I've already digested a wealth of information, Laurie. You are just chock full of it. Before the break, we were talking about fixing the picker. So for those who are now getting back into the dating scene and they may be a little weary and uncertain about their choices, help them to make the next choice better. What do they have to think about to get what it is that they want?
Right. It is back to trust, right? So if you've been picking badly, what reason would you have to believe you will now pick better?
Sure.
Unless you have purposely steered the ship in a different direction.
Yeah.
So, and this is where I will say, go back and listen to our other podcast, because we have talked about the 3 H's, the head, the heart, and the hoo-ha, right? What's sensible in a partnership, what feels good in a partnership, and what turns you on are the 3 voters. And most of us have a very clear pattern of what we forsake.
Right.
So we forsake the head. We try to make it with someone who doesn't want what we want, or we forsake the heart because we never really develop that trust and care, or we forsake the hoo-ha because we want the stability, but it just doesn't, it's not sexy. And so the first most important piece of the strategy is to know how you sell out, to know what your pattern is, because you will not pick differently unless you can see the bad pattern coming at you from a mile away. Again, this is also why we have group coaching. This is why we have accountability. This is why sometimes a coach can help, because you are bad at seeing your own blind spots. You just, it's like seeing the back of your own head. You really can't see it. Yeah. So it's very helpful to have someone go, oh, no, that it really is just like Peter. Like that really is just like Bob. Time out. And it's also important to tell all your friends the patterns as well, because if they really are.
I ask you that. Are good friends advocates in these scenarios, or do they get too involved, or do they see us sometimes better than we see ourselves?
It really depends on the friend. I'm sure you know this, but sometimes friends can be the biggest haters and naysayers. I just coached one of my, a woman who I met through you actually, that she needed to go one by one and have one of those honest conversations with each of her friends who would tell her horror stories about online dating or horror stories about loneliness and old age. And it was like ingesting terrible news all the time. So friends can take you down the opposite road. Again, this is why I love my coaching group, because it's a bunch of 50 plus women cheering each other on purpose, feeding each other good stories, not bad ones. So friends can be great if they're on board, if they want your dream for you, if they're not jealous or competing with you, and if they understand what your negative patterns are and can help you keep track of them.
Hence, that would define a good friend. Right? So to me, the rest of them need to kind of go by the wayside.
Hopefully. Exactly. Right. That's a good podcast.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to know what your pattern is and then consciously choose to pick differently. Tell everybody so that they hold you to account, and then use the tools of the 3H chart. Again, I think we can look at past podcasts to hear more about the 3H chart, where you are very consciously vetting for your criteria.
Yeah.
And if the person does not have your criteria at a certain level, if one of your deal breakers becomes apparent, that's just an abort the mission. That's just a no. And you can become a person who's just a no, right? If you ever quit drinking or smoking or wearing high heels or, dyeing your hair that color, there is such a thing as quitting. you can quit. And I really love to remind women that they have quit things before. And if you're divorced, again, you did the brave thing. You quit the thing. So, or you let go of the thing. Maybe it wasn't your choice, but you can let go of a thing. You can change your type. You can. I can tell you so many stories, but you do have to stay conscious. It really is like a bit of an addiction. So if you're not conscious and you're not playing one day at a time, you can get tripped up.
Yeah. Speaking of addiction, let's talk about narcissists. They're interesting creatures, generally easy to spot and generally difficult to leave. And very smart women have become entangled with people like that. So what is the deal? And why has narcissism become such a hot button topic these days? I mean, have they always been there, or are we just starting to label and identify them?
Yeah. Well, I do think with the role of women in society, at least in America, has changed so radically in the last 50 years. I mean, just what we are capable of doing and where we find ourselves is just, it's so different. Mm-hmm. And so men and women, we're just in a whole new ballgame. So I certainly don't think the mental illness of narcissism is new, but I do think the willingness to talk about it is new. And I think the more people talk about it, obviously, the more people can identify it, relate to it, and get free from it if they're subjected to that. The problem with narcissism that I see, and I'm not an expert on narcissism, so I'm not promoting myself as one, but I do deal with a lot of women who are recovering from being in narcissistic relationships with parents as well as with partners. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that the narcissist is not always a jerk. Often the narcissist actually makes you feel great and needs you and loves you and can, love bomb you and give you lots of what you need. So it's very hard to know at first. And I think that's really upsetting for a lot of people to know that they could get tricked, right? That they could get tricked, especially if you've been tricked before or you really didn't know and it unfolded over time, or even maybe someone changed, right? Like it's possible that somebody could change and have a much bigger showing of narcissistic tendencies than they did before. So that's disturbing. I think what I want to talk to, because I'm talking to people who are dating after divorce, is if you're somebody who has survived a narcissistic relationship, you should be in community with other people like that so you can learn. Yeah. You can have support, you can be understood, you can learn, because your regular friends are not going to understand that. They're going to map it onto, he's just playing a lot of golf, right? It's not the same thing. It's a mental health condition. It's not the same thing. It needs its own it really does need its own special perspective and tools. And if you have to co-parent with a narcissist, it really needs its own special tools, because you are compensating for a mental illness. You have to be the stable one, like I said at the beginning. Right. So, and if the narcissist makes you the bad guy, if the narcissist will never take the blame, if the narcissist will never own what they did, if the narcissist will never, the truth? Yes, if they will never care about your experience, you have to know that is the diagnosis. That is not because your experience is not valid. That's not because you don't deserve to be heard and seen. That's just what the illness is. It's what the illness is. I would even say it's not their fault, right? Like narcissists don't know they're narcissists and don't go for treatment. I actually interviewed an expert on narcissism once, and I said, what are the numbers, right? Like, what are the numbers like? And she said, well, narcissists don't self-report.
That's true. They're reported on by others.
Good point. Good point. You very rarely see a narcissist.
You're right. You're right. They don't self-identify. That is true. Right.
So again, the wisdom is for you to know what the signs are. If your experience is not validated, if your experience is not respected, if your experience is not heard, that's everywhere from a selfish person to a narcissist. At an extreme, it's a narcissist. At a non-extreme, it's just a selfish person who's not showing you love as a verb.
What's the difference between the two? Because I think that could be confusing for some people, not knowing the difference between somebody who is self-absorbed versus a narcissist.
Right. Again, I can't give a clinical answer to that, and that's where a mental health professional comes in really handy. But what I always have my clients do to start to see what the nuances are or how salvageable a relationship is I go, you clean up yours. You start with what you're sorry for. Start with what you're sorry for. Start with what you're going to take on. Start with that. If they go, thanks, you are a jerk, that's not great. If they go, oh my God, I'm sorry too, or let me take these things on, or if things start to change because you change, that's a good sign you're in a relationship with somebody who is up for a relationship, right? Versus if they let you take all the heat, take all the responsibility, and take none, then you're dealing with somebody, even if they're only selfish and not a narcissist, probably not a great investment.
Right. Exactly. And generally narcissists tend not to see their own flaws. Therefore, even if you're helping to point them out, and then they don't even want to work on them. So isn't that just sort of the telltale sign that this is going nowhere and need to get out? But, to the point, getting out can be incredibly difficult because, you mentioned it earlier. They love bomb. They can show very tender and endearing qualities. And so it's almost this dopamine thing that's keeping you in. And it can be a very difficult thing for women to break.
And that's why I go back to, first of all, write it all down because you will selectively forget, like you forgot how labor feels, right?
Exactly.
You'll selectively forget and tell your friends the truth because you need witnesses.
Yeah. And generally, they've seen the truth.
Right.
And they probably want to tell you more than they have, but they've seen more than they probably care to.
And everybody knows when they tell that they're getting divorced and, they have a pile of friends that go, well, I was hoping, I didn't tell you, but, and you're just like, thanks, guys, thanks.
Yeah.
So if you are the friend, tell. And if you are not, if you have friends who aren't hearing the truth and aren't reflecting the truth back to you, you're just missing out on the benefit of that, right? It's free and it really, really helps because you will forget. They will try to get you back. They will try to re-rope you in, and you have to go on the full body of data. You can't go on what's happening today.
Correct. That you're right. And journaling and writing things down to get a little bit of distance and separation is incredibly important. And that leads to number 6 in your list to be strategic and successful. And that is, how do I avoid covert narcs in the future?
Right.
How do you avoid them?
It's really good. So I think it probably is obvious at this point, but if it seems too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
Right.
And my joke to my clients is, you have 7 liabilities and he has 7 liabilities. I'd like you to know those after 3 dates, right? I would like you to get to it fast because what are you hiding it for? It's gonna come out in the end. 7 is an estimate. It's not really 7. I don't know. But you have things that don't work about you. They have things that don't work about them. They're either going to be charming to you, tolerable to you, or you can work with it, or you're going to grow together. But some of them might be deal breakers. And you do need to find out if each other's liabilities are deal breakers before you fall in love, before you have sex. I would like you to do that before you have sex or fall in love with a person. So if you don't know their liabilities, that's a huge red flag for me. Mm-hmm. That's danger, danger, danger. Too good to be true is too good to be true.
Right.
Okay. All right. That's number 1. Then if you practice what I'm telling you to do, which is to gracefully tell your experience as you go, starting from the very first date, even starting from like, we've been texting for a while. This is fun, but I'd really like to hop on a video chat with you because I'd like to see if we have chemistry. Mm-hmm. Boom. You've now established a culture of honesty and forthrightness and no games. So you start that communication policy at the very beginning. You don't skip it. If you have a thought, you're welcome to just dismiss it, right? If it's if you think, oh, his breath smelled, like, you don't have to say every thought you have. If his breath smells good the next time, you can let it go.
Okay.
Right. But if you have a thought 3 times, that's my 3 grumble rule, you have to design a conversation and have it. And so now you're just acclimating him. And what I can promise you is 98% of men, I think that's pretty accurate. That's my very unscientific statistic. 98% of men really appreciate no games. They're not mind readers. They don't know how to win with you. They do want to know what your experience is. They cannot guess. And so you saying, let's move to a video chat, or you saying, I'd like you to ask me out again, or you saying, why are you still on Bumble, is helpful. It is not harmful. And it is only harmful with someone who doesn't mean you well.
Right.
So please get rid of them.
Yeah. And are there ways that we should have these conversations coming from a place of curiosity as opposed to accusation?
Of course. Yeah. And again, one of my modules in the digital course is to design the questions, right? What are the questions? And every question has to be said. In my example before, I've really struggled with finances and meshing lives with people because I find that I'm too generous. I give it away and then I end up getting burned. I even got scammed once, like, you just tell the truth.
Right.
And then you ask, what do you think about that? Or has that ever happened to you? Or what's been your experience? And you ask these open questions that are actually good and interesting conversations, as well as absolutely not accusatory.
Yep. And I love coming from that I perspective first. I find this happened to me. And that way you take the heat, because generally if you do it without that, they're going to feel like,
it's a test.
What did I do wrong?
Exactly. And it is a test, right? All the questions I want you to ask could absolutely sound like a test. I should do a little skit where I demonstrated each way. Yeah. It could actually sound like such a mean test and judgmental, or it could sound like falling in love and being curious and being interested and wanting to share yourself. And again, if that scares the guy away, good.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Because better early than late, that's for sure. But definitely ask your questions from the I perspective. And you talk about these hard conversations. I mean, that is a red flag. If somebody's not willing to have the hard conversations, even if you are couching them the right way and you're being incredibly mindful about how you broach the subject, well, what does that tell you?
It tells you so much. And that, and nobody wants to admit it, right? Like nobody wants to go, that's very clearly an indication that the person is not a give-take person. It's a take person. And that's close enough to narcissism for me to say no for you. And also just consideration, right? Again, this is so obvious, but how you avoid a narcissist is you look for a regular amount of consideration, like the best boss you ever had, not love bombing, not trying to get you to marry them in the next 2 weeks. Just a regular amount of consideration. What do you think about that? How do you feel about that? Are you cold? Just a regular amount of consideration is a very nice green flag to look for as you seek to not repeat the same mistakes.
Very good. Well, those are all very sound things to look for. Nobody wants to have a repeat narcissist in their lives. And what does that say about you, right? Great.
Yeah, type.
Shoot. Yeah. Okay. So number 7 in your list of strategies is how to detect lying in dating and how to avoid lying in dating. Right. Because, hey, everybody's dressed to impress, right?
Yep. Yeah. I think we've talked a lot about it, but I will summarize a few points, which is that everyone does lie. I mean, I think I read a study where they said, about 11 a day, right? So if you think about it, you're not. The more someone professes that they never lie, the more scared you should be, right? You should be much more comfortable with someone who says, yeah, of course I lie sometimes. Here's how I do it, right? I pretend I left a bigger tip than I did. I pretend I understand an accent that I don't. I pretend that this doesn't have calories in it. I pretend that I went to the doctor. I tell my mother I went. Everyone's got a way they do it and a reason, right? Like a set of reasons. So I would be more trusting of someone who can admit that they lie from time to time. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that if you know you lie, it's almost for sure you're going to either be lied to or you're going to think you're being lied to, because there's no way you don't think the world's mirroring you. Mm-hmm. So the more you endeavor not to lie, which is a very fun game to play, the more you endeavor not to lie, the more you will trust other people. Weirdly. And the more you'll feel you have a right to ask for the truth. The more you'll feel like, if I just told mine, I would expect they could tell theirs. Which then leads to the next thing, which is make it safe for people to tell the truth. Now that's really tricky. I mean, I'm coaching a couple right now, and the guy keeps telling me his secrets, and I'm just like, tell her right away. I give him 24 hours to go tell her. But I can see that she is not safe. I'm safe to tell the truth too. I'm not judging. I understand that people do these things for a reason. But she is deciding if she's going to keep him or not based on these things. So of course he's lying, which is why I want to say to you as the dater, it is okay if the truth is a deal breaker. You have to be okay that the truth might be a deal breaker. You might not be okay with they're actively dealing with cancer, or they're actively dealing with an STD, or they're taking care of their mother who's dying. There might be something you don't want to tell because it could ruin it. And it does.
Yeah.
It's possible.
I think that kind of drills back down to that fear again of, oh my gosh, I found this person. Okay, let's say I got 10 things that I need, or whatever, 5 things, right? And that person needs 3. And so, okay, I'm willing to just kind of let go of these 2. But, that's where I think the lying comes in, and we just kind of accept things that aren't good for us because we're just so stinking happy with the 3 things that are, right?
Right. And I think that's a lack of faith, unfortunately. I think that's a lack of faith. And that's why it's technically, according to me, a lie.
Yep.
And unfortunately, spiritually speaking, not in honor of your highest self or your dreams.
Amen. You
And
are
it
preaching.
is so hard. People
Preach
will judge you for it, for
I know.
holding out for what you truly want. So
Yep.
how do you make it safe for someone to tell the truth? Is you say, it's okay. Whatever you say, I'm not judging. I want to know you. I want to see if this is a match. And you keep speaking that language of, let's see if this is a match for both of us.
Right.
I'm not judging you and evaluating you. I don't think you're judging and evaluating me. We're seeing if we're a match. That's the kind way to think about it. And it's still hard because someone might get rejected because there's a deal breaker. But that doesn't mean the deal breaker doesn't exist if you don't talk about it.
Sure. And it doesn't mean that the deal breaker can't also be changed. Maybe it is something that's workable, fixable, or doable.
It often is.
And it often is until you address it, right? So that leads to number 8, and that is the keys of learning self-trust and learning to trust others in newly dating. And I really love, we're circling right back to trust again and truth. And, if you've done the homework that you stated in number 1, and that is owning the lies that you have said, the lies that have been spoken to you. And you say, okay, I'm moving forward and I am doing this differently. I'm going to operate by a totally different standard. I am operating by the truth here. And you're right. It's freeing and it feels good, but at the same time, it can be very, very scary because you don't know what it will lead to. So let's talk about learning to operate now in this new modality of self-trust and what that looks like going forward.
And unfortunately, what it means is you might have a different set of friends, and it might be a smaller set of friends, and it might be less dates, but with way more high caliber humans.
People. Yeah.
But I think that elevates everybody, right? I think there have to be people who lead the way and set the example. And then even if it doesn't work out with the people you meet, you leave them on higher ground.
Right.
If you dated them and you followed those protocols, even if they are not a match for you, they are now better daters, right? So it's lifting everybody, all of humanity, starting to create the section in the bookstore about lying.
Yeah.
So, but I think one of the best ways to work on trusting yourself is to make and keep a promise, even if it's 8 glasses of water a day, or I'll work out every morning, or I'll, make my bed, or I'll get up when the alarm goes off. Just that ability to not lie to yourself, right? The ability to say, I'm going to do it and then do it is profound. It's profound.
It's like you say, you're building a stronger foundation for yourself on which to build your house.
Right. Exactly. So that builds self-trust, which then does build that other people will trust you. Mm-hmm. And it builds your right to say, hey, will you take out the garbage every day like a promise? Like, can I count on you for that? Or can I count on you to come off of Bumble? Can I count on you to be faithful? Can I count on you to call me before you go to bed? If you are accountable to yourself, you then can ask that from another person. And you can say, let's operate on the basis of we give our word and we honor our word, because that is what trust is based on for yourself and for you with other people. Right. But if you're not practicing with yourself, it's very hard to require it from somebody else. So that is really my first weird rule of how to develop the ability to trust other people. And then I think that, again, that foundation of what's important to me, I have my faith, I have my health, I have my family, I have my friends, I have my self-care. That needs to be in place. Right? I'm sorry that you have to have a great life in order to have great love, but it's good. It's actually good news.
Yeah, it is good news. It is. And I love that you've brought up faith a couple of times. I know for me, just what I've done differently is that my relationship is completely rooted in faith. And it's something, it's just, we are operating very differently as a couple than we have in the past. Not to say that faith wasn't there in the past, but it's the foundation of this relationship.
It's spoken.
Yes. Yeah. And it's spoken. It is a spoken truth. And not only is it spoken, it's acted upon every single day. And it has been a complete game changer in how we both operate as a couple, as individuals. And you're right. I mean, this stuff is rooted foundationally in some really, really strong principles in order to do it right.
Right. Because left to our own little human devices and this very weak brain we have as humans, we really lie 11 times a day. We really are subject to the deadly sins. We really are animalistic. We really are not awesome. So without a higher purpose, without something bigger to rely on and some bigger ways of thinking and understanding the world, it is very hard to stay good right? Like to stay
Yes.
in alignment with your own highest ideal. So it's really just, you're just making your work harder if you don't use, all of the tools and all of the support that is available. So I really don't know how people keep relationships going without self-care, without personal integrity, without a relationship to spirituality. Because it's just too hard.
I would have to agree with you. And I think to me, that is the perfect note to end on. But wow, what amazing, great 8 strategies for, for wherever you are in your relationship life. I think all of this is just healthy, valuable information to function as your best human on this earth during the time that we're here. And I'm just so grateful for you and your knowledge and your wisdom and willingness to impart it. And as always, I can't wait to have you back, my friend, Laurie Gerber. You're awesome.
Yay!
I wish you all the blessings in 2025, and I know we will see each other again really soon.
Great. Bye, everyone.
Always love having her on. She is just a wealth of knowledge and information and inspiration on top of it all. If you enjoyed today's podcast and watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you did. Please, you can comment below if you have any comments or questions for Laurie or any other particular guests or subjects that you would like to see here on Over 50 and Flourishing. Of course, I ask too for you to subscribe to my channel. There are 2 different types of content that come out. A podcast on Mondays dealing with women's issues in midlife, a myriad of things. And then my tried and true tutorials that have been here since 2014. They are always and have been every Thursdays, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I would love to have you as a subscriber on YouTube. And of course, thank you if you are listening on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to a podcast. So appreciate you. I would love it if you would take the time to possibly rate, review, subscribe, and share Over 50 and Flourishing with the other women in your life. Could be a mom, a daughter, sister, friend. Let's expand the community and spread the wonderful women out there who take the time to come on this podcast, share their time and share their information. And let's help each other out during this season of life. Thanks for being here. Look forward to seeing you again next week. This show is sponsored by Liquid IV. Look, it's easy to get dehydrated, too much caffeine or alcohol, or even most of us are kind of ramping up our exercise routine and we need hydration. Well, introduce Liquid IV, powered by Live Hydroscience. Liquid IV will just help you break the mold from the ordinary water. All you have to do is take one of their packs, tear it open, add it to your water, and pow! We're talking about flavors like acai berry, lemon lime, pina colada, even sugar-free flavors like raspberry lemonade, white peach, rainbow sherbet. I think there's something in there for you. It's powered by Live Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that just turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. In fact, 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink. And it's non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. So embrace your ritual with extraordinary hydration from Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code OVER50 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code OVER50 at liquidiv.com.